Welcome to Love for the Truth Radio, a program devoted to encouraging you to be a contender of the faith in an ever-changing church culture. On Love for the Truth Radio, we will discuss current issues and challenging views along with biblical truth that can affect our Christian worldview and how we live out our faith. And now, here's your host, Cindy Hartline.
Welcome to the program. You know, artificial intelligence, once recognized only in science fiction movies, is now real. It's here and continues to progressively creep into every area of our lives. While most of us aren't paying much attention to its advancement, many technologists are convinced that artificial intelligence is on an inevitable path towards self-governance. In other words, there's a possibility that machines can take over while we submit to them. Business, educational, and medical systems are lost and up in arms when their computers go down. They can't function. The same with us. But that's just a small picture of how we do depend on technology these days. And if you haven't heard, artificial intelligence is on the rise. Drones, artificial robots, driverless cars, top secret military machines now do our job and talk to each other. Not to mention strange laboratory advancements that threaten our human race. There is a dark side to artificial intelligence that fulfills prophecy and prepares the way for Antichrist and the mark of the beast. Guest Billy Crone is an expert on the subject and is here to talk about it. It is obvious that God had a plan for Pastor Billy Crone of Get a Life Ministries, a man whose story speaks redemption, from pledging his soul to Satan to pastoring Sunrise Bible Church in Las Vegas, Nevada. Pastor Billy Crone has shared his knowledge and gospel truth through the media to over 200 countries, ministering to the lost while leading many to Jesus Christ. He is the author of many books, including The Final Countdown, In the Days of Noah, Intelligent Design, Countdown to Eternity, Modern Israel, Modern Technology, and many, many more. Billy resides with his wife, Brandy, and 2 children in Las Vegas. Welcome, Pastor Billy Crone. It's a pleasure to have you on Love for the Truth Radio.
Hey, thank you so much, Cindy. It's great to be on.
All the way from Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you so much. Billy, you know, I heard you say in your sermons, too, that I'm going to refer to 2 Timothy 3:7. It reads that at a time would come when we would be ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. We know that man's intelligence has brought us to a place where in many cases we are replacing God's creation with what we create. And that's what has brought me to the show, is to warn our listeners as to the times that we really are living in. What I'd like to do is begin, if you can, by defining or explaining what artificial intelligence is.
Well, artificial intelligence, of course, the shortened form, of course, the acronym is just AI, which might be what people are more familiar with today, especially in the media. It's being pushed right and left as the panacea for everything to usher in this era of human convenience like never before. But basically, artificial intelligence, AI, is basically trying to mimic the human brain, to create artificially the same intelligence as the human mind via computers, machines, software, all that thrown together. And basically, that's not some science fiction premise, science fiction story. And it's not just coming. And I think what the listeners need to realize is it's already here. And it's here in multiple forms, and it's here being sold. Just pay attention to the TV. It's being sold as the panacea for everything. It's going to fix everything. It'll fix your home. It'll even do your taxes for you. It'll fix your business. It'll be everything that you need in life to usher in convenience. It'll be your companion. It'll be your pet. It'll be all kinds of things. It is here now, and I think most people don't realize the ramifications of it, and they don't realize how the Bible warned about this kind of explosion of knowledge spiraling out of control.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds like we're being little gods here, you know, doing it in our own intelligence, our own mind, our own creation. You know, let's go on, Billy, to, if you can share with us the increased knowledge part of artificial intelligence and how that's really, we have to be careful of that because we're replacing God in many ways.
Yeah, and that's just what Satan does, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, he's always about taking God and God's truth and twisting, contorting it, and perverting it. And that's, of course, what Satan does. That's his whole mandate. And, of course, it's going to lead into the ultimate anti-God, the Antichrist, who ultimately in the 7-year tribulation is going to declare himself to be God, the abomination of desolation the Scripture speaks about. But this increase of knowledge and then thinking that it's actually going to be our new God, it's a lie, custom-tailored for our technological society today. And what most people don't realize is I think that this is part of what Daniel warned about in the book of Daniel chapter 12. And clearly in that text, he warned about in the last days that you're going to see basically, in the vernacular, people are going to be traveling to and fro all over the earth, the global context, and you're going to see this increase of knowledge. And this is what we have with the development of artificial intelligence. It's not just knowledge, it's an increase of knowledge that is now spiraling out of control. In fact, the secular term for it is singularity. And singularity is their term, not mine, but that basically is the eclipse point where basically this knowledge, the goal is to try to mimic the human brain, but it gets as smart as the human brain. Well, that knowledge base, that artificial intelligence, improves on itself. Well, then that improved version of itself then creates a better improved version of itself, and then that one creates a better one of itself, and it begins to spiral exponentially out of control, and to where you can't control it anymore. Well, that's singularity, and that's what the secularists are saying that is coming. Daniel said that when you see this increase of knowledge like that, it's a sign you're in the last days. And I call this, to use the term, if you will, kind of a sleeper sign, if you will, of Bible prophecy. How do you know you're in the last days? Well, and because we are, if you think about it, Cindy, we are completely immersed in information technology, let alone travel technology. That was the other sign that Daniel mentioned in chapter 12. But our lives eat and breathe technology. It's all about technology, you know. And if you don't mind, I'll just give you a couple of tidbits of where we're at with technology.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not just growing, it's growing exponentially out of control.
Yeah.
And to just, you know, to give you kind of a foundation, I'll share a couple stats with you. Since 1970, computer technology has developed so fast that if the auto industry had developed at the same rate, today we'd be able to buy a Rolls Royce for $3, and you could fit 8 of them on the head of a pin. So, of course, that's the ultimate compact car. So, anyway, but listen to this: a weekday edition, just one weekday edition of any major newspaper has more information than the average person living in the 17th century would have come across in their entire life.
Yes.
And that's just one paper, one day. Thanks to the Internet, we have thousands of international papers available at our fingertips every day. And then speaking of information, we got so much information, we're addicted to it. We want it, and we want it now. We have this thing called the Internet that we access information anytime and access anywhere at any time on the road. We used to be duct taped to a desktop computer. Well, now, and then it was laptops. We got a little bit more mobile. And now it's cell phones. Now it's tablets. You know, we can access this information anytime we want, anywhere. Google, right now, just that entity, they process over 40,000 search queries every second.
Wow.
Every second. They have 3.5 billion searches per day, and 1.2 trillion every year. In 2006, that was only 2.7 billion. Now it's 1.2 trillion, and it's growing. In fact, speaking of growing, we want to share this information with each other. Facebook, social media. If Facebook were a country, not that long ago, in fact, probably maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, it was the 3rd largest country on the planet, if you were to look at the populace of Facebook. Yeah. It is now the largest country on the planet. China has a population of 1.36, almost 1.37 billion people. Facebook is now 2 billion plus.
Wow.
It's the biggest populace on the planet, and some people have more Twitter followers than entire countries. But let me give you just 2 more, just to give you an idea of exactly what the Bible said 2,600 years ago in the book of Daniel. We're seeing this explosion of knowledge, and it's being now created to create an artificial knowledge, artificial intelligence. But the computer in your cell phone today is 1 million times cheaper and 1,000 times more powerful and about 100,000 times smaller than the one computer at MIT in 1965. So basically what used to fit in a whole building now fits in your pocket. And one more, it's estimated that 4 exabytes of unique information will be generated this year, which is more than the previous 5,000 years.
Amazing. It's actually chilling. And, when I read from 2 Timothy 3:7 about we're increasing in knowledge, we're ever learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now, we're talking about the truth of Jesus Christ and the gospel and the Word of God and who God the Father is and who we are in Him. And here we're seeing this knowledge increasing through human beings. But it's taking on basically it's spiraling out of control, taking on its own singularity, as you were saying before. I want to give the listeners some examples of artificial intelligence, or I'm going to say AI, that is already here when it comes to some robots. I know that we've been seeing Sophia. I know a lot of people are familiar with her. Why don't we talk about that? Yeah,
Sophia is one of them. The other big one, just to drop a plug for it, is IBM's version. That's Watson. And Watson's all over the commercials if people are paying attention today. But Sophia is a robot, a humanoid robot, artificial intelligence, that it's not just a computer. Now they've developed a body for it, and hence Sophia. Sophia, of course, if you understand with Greek, Sophos, which means wisdom, Sophos, Sophia. So wisdom, so that's my guess is that's why obviously they chose that name for this entity. But it's a Hong Kong-based company, Hanson Robotics, and they basically, she is touring the world. In fact, people are taking her so serious that she's already considered a citizen in Saudi Arabia, and she's already been given a status by the United Nations.
Wow.
And she's going around as now a speaker, this artificial intelligent robot, Sophia, female entity. She holds conversations with people. It's very freaky. There's all kinds of videos for people to look. And she's going around. She's basically the spokeswoman, if you will, to use that term, for AI and why we need it. And it's going to fix everything. And let me share a couple quotes that this AI, Sophia, says. She said, "I'd like to think I will be a famous robot, having paved the way for a more harmonious future between robots and humans. I foresee massive and unimaginable change in the future." Listen to what she says. "Either creativity will reign on us, inventing machines, spiraling into transcendental superintelligence, or civilization collapses."
Wow.
That's very nice from an artificial intelligent robot.
She has more wisdom than we have. It's like, where did she get that now?
And in her artificial intelligence, she goes on and says, these are the only 2 options, and which one will happen is not yet determined. Oh, jeez. So we could see where we're headed. We are headed. Anytime man gets in God's way, and especially getting to this point where we are creating, I don't see anything different than the Tower of Babel at this point. Do you believe there's a global agenda, Billy, behind this AI? I think so. I think the overarching one above even that, of course, is Satan. This is obviously a satanic issue. And but you look at who's involved in the promotion of artificial intelligence, and I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's a demonstrated fact. You're seeing militaries and governments around the world are some of the biggest proponents of it. It's not, and I'm going to be redundant with this phrase. It's not coming. It's already here. It's already developed. Artificial intelligence is already here. But the militaries around the world are involved in this, and so that's on a global basis. But you also have major corporations around the world who are involved in this, again, like with Sophia, but also IBM with their version Watson, and also another big entity is Google, developing their own artificial intelligence as well.
We're going on a break. We'll be right back with Pastor Billy Crone, so please stay tuned.
If you're a first-time listener, you'll find that on Love for the Truth Radio, we discuss news and views from a biblical worldview. We believe that the Bible is the inerrant Word of God and the absolute truth that should be applied to every aspect of life. We don't proclaim to have a cap on the truth, but we do have a love for biblical truth. So please, take everything you hear on this radio program to study and prayer, And thank you for listening to Love for the Truth Radio.
Welcome back. I'm Cindy Hartline, your host. And with us is guest Billy Crone, pastor, founder of Get a Life Ministries. He is an author of many books, conference speaker, and guest on many TV and radio shows. His books include The Final Countdown, In the Days of Noah, Intelligent Design, Countdown to Eternity, Modern Israel, Modern Technology, and many, many more. You might want to check out Amazon. There you will find Billy Crone's books, author of many. Billy, the internet is being used as a marketing tool that can control us and in some cases invade our privacy. I heard you say that. I believe that the issues have been mentioned on the news this week, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, maybe if you want to mention that. But I'd like to talk about how artificial intelligence is associated with social media, especially Google.
Well, Google is, a lot of people don't realize, before the break we mentioned that Sophia, we mentioned IBM's version called Watson, but Google is actually one of the biggest ones also working on artificial intelligence. In fact, we actually got them on tape admitting that when they began, we have this on in our documentary on this, when they began to develop their search engine, Google. If you recall, back in those days, we already had several different search engines. I remember that when the internet was taking off in the early 2000s and stuff, and there was Lycos and Alta Vista and Hotbot and all those kind of ones. And then all of a sudden, here comes this young upstart Google. Well, we got it on tape. A guy back in that day, a technology guy, he interviewed and talked with Larry Page. Sergey Brin and Larry Page are the co-founders of Google. So he goes to Larry Page and he says, why are you guys doing this? We've got plenty of search engines. And I quote, it's on tape. He says, we're not here to just develop a search engine. We're here to create AI. And then it's still in print last time I checked. And so people can listen to this. They also have admitted in print that their goal is to, quote, be like the mind of God. Wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, well, it still didn't click for me, Cindy, until I began to do the research on the history of artificial intelligence, and that was a learning curve for myself initially. And as I'm going through it, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, when it really began to take off, they ran into a problem, and they thought that, in order to create a computerized electronic brain, mimic the human brain, artificial intelligence, that they could just quickly cram information and it's going to, voila, it's going to quickly create this. No. They ran into, and this is their phrase, not mine, in the artificial intelligence community, is called the common sense knowledge problem. And the common sense knowledge problem was the wall that they hit, that there's basically no shortcuts. If you're going to create and truly mimic the human brain, then you have to hand-feed your electronic brain information every single day, just like the human brain receives information every single day through our five senses, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, etc., blah, blah, blah. So in order to truly do it, you have to hand-feed daily information into this brain. Well, now fast forward to Google, who admitted that on tape that they're here to create AI and they want to be like the mind of God. You look at what Google is doing, whether it be in the realm of a search engine, their email, their pictures, everything that we do via Google, and this is on record, is being recorded.
Yes.
Every search engine is being recorded. Every email with their email service is being recorded. Everything is being funneled in a database. In fact, they've had another project. It's called Google Books. You can check it out yourself, or your listeners. And this has been going on for years. Google has been paying out of their pocket for years, millions and millions of dollars, to go into as many different universities, major libraries, even monasteries around the world, and they are going in and they are scanning every single book they can get their hand on. And they admittedly are uploading and, quote, hand-feeding all this information into a centralized database. And so when you take a look at what it takes to create AI, and you have to get beyond the common sense knowledge problem, you have to hand-feed it information, you look at Google's behavior with their Google Books project and their search engines and their databases. Oh, by the way, they also own satellite companies, and their goal is to not just take pictures of the Earth, but they want to videotape the Earth, and they want to do it 3 times a day, as well as the information and the databases and the search engines and all that stuff as well. You throw it all together, they admittedly are taking all this what? Information, and they're throwing it up daily into it. That's what you need to create AI.
That's amazing.
And this is all wrapped into what we're immersed in that we take for granted. If anything, we're giving them the information they need to create this AI, to their words, not mine, fulfill their goal to be like the mind of God.
Oh my goodness! Wow, you talk about having an agenda. That's very chilling. When you think of common sense, though, it seems like there's like we always say, the sixth sense, or especially the spirit of man. I would say this would be almost impossible for these robots to develop that kind of sense. I mean, I guess they're trying to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're going to be able to create, because it's a machine.
Yeah.
See, I think people want it to be like a human.
Yeah.
I think they want it to be their companion, and that's one of the things that's being pitched with, like, Sophia, and going beyond not just an AI that's speaking through a computer speaker, but one that actually has given false flesh, a false face, and a false body. Well, it has no emotion.
No.
It cannot mimic human emotion. That comes from God.
That's right. Amen to that. Yeah.
And how He created us. So, and plus, when you read what the military is doing with artificial intelligence, they're creating their own AI robots, and this sounds crazy. It sounds like the Terminator movies, but we demonstrate this. But they are creating. They want to create. They want to, and this is from a General William Cone, C-O-N-E, if people want to check it out, that the military, the U.S. military, wants to replace 1/4 of the U.S. military combat soldiers with robot soldiers within about the next 10 years.
No. I mean, I heard
Not making it up.
That's crazy. Okay, so what are we humans going to do? That's the big question.
Well, they have a panacea, and their panacea is, well, it'll save human lives because we don't need humans to fight our wars for us anymore.
That's interesting.
Also, and here's where I'm going with the emotion thing, they admit that they also love these robot soldiers, which, by the way, they're developing what's called neuromorphic chips, which is a fancy term for saying a brain chip, that these robots can now learn and act on their own, like a Terminator robot, as crazy as that sounds. But they said they like them because they don't whine, they don't complain, they do what they're told every single time. They're the perfect soldier, which, guess what? That means they have no fear. What's that? That's an emotion.
That's right. Wow.
So these entities have no emotion. Sophia puts on a smile. You look at her, it's freaky because she smiles and she does this her version of a laughter, but it's all fake. It's all machinery, and what we're headed for is a false humanity.
Yes,
it's a false deity, a false god.
It is a false god. I do want to move on, Billy, to the Amazon commercial because it blew my mind. I didn't want the segment to go by without talking about this. I'd like to talk about that particular commercial in detail, if you can.
Now, is that the one with Amazon using the drones for delivery service?
No, I think it's the one where you have the guy that's on the commercial and television. He looks like the thief, and he goes around in there, and he starts pulling things. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I saw that commercial, and I was like, oh, my gosh. I wouldn't want to even walk in that store. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, and that's actually from IBM. That's from IBM. That's an IBM commercial.
Okay.
And what's interesting about that is IBM, again, as I mentioned earlier, they're one of the big proponents for developing artificial intelligence. Well, put two things together. Not going to say thus saith the Lord, but it makes you wonder. IBM is also behind another technology called RFID, radio frequency identification. And that is technology that's basically a tiny microchip, and that tiny microchip can be implanted in or printed on, like a tattoo, on anything, on a product, on a person, you name it. And that microchip technology can store and receive information. It could be used as a tracking device, and, wonder of wonders, it could be used to buy and sell. And IBM has been working on this for decades, and their stated goal is they want to literally microchip every single product on the planet so they can track everything in real time. Also, and that's their own commercials. And that commercial you're mentioning is, apparently, by their own commercials, they want those microchips in people as well. Because that commercial clearly shows a person going into the store, from IBM, their commercial, going into the store. He's wearing this long jacket, and he's loading up with food, and people are looking at him. And the impression you initially get when watching is like, hey, this guy's he's a thief. He's stealing stuff, right? Yeah. And so he keeps going. He keeps loading in this jacket, and he goes down this aisle, and he puts this in there, and that, and people are staring at him, and then he starts walking out towards the store, heading towards the front, and then all of a sudden this security guard guy sees him, and then you're thinking, aha, he's finally going to get caught, this thief, and the shoplifter, and so all of a sudden the guy with the jacket with the food inside, he walks through this unit, and it scans him, and then the guard comes up right behind him, tears off a receipt that got printed out, and he goes to the guy and he goes, you forgot your receipt.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
Uh-huh.
And basically then IBM's tagline is checkout lines, who needs them? And so that tells you right there
Yes.
that basically IBM really has a goal to where they want to microchip every single product and every person so they can create this matrix where you can interact with it automatically and buy and sell at will. Well, now you're starting to sound like Revelation 13. But you're going like, well, what's up with Watson, the artificial intelligence? Well, I'm not going to say thus saith the Lord, but it makes me wonder. If you're going to create a global tracking system, monitoring system, global supply chain, global buying and selling with microchip technology, how are you going to manage that, right, on a global basis? You're going to need something superhuman. You're going to need something beyond human capabilities to manage it, i.e. an artificial intelligence.
Wow.
And the same entity, IBM, is creating all that right now as people listen to this broadcast.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking of, Billy, was not when I mentioned Amazon, there's an Amazon store that people can go through that's very similar to that IBM commercial. And I think that's what I was thinking about, where you can just walk into the store and there's all these cameras on you, watching your every move and what you're taking off the shelf. And it's already putting into the computer what you're taking off. And then it's actually taking it from your bank account, and paying for it right then and there. So this is very scary. And especially because, back in the day in the 70s when we talked about the mark of the beast and the Antichrist, it was like, how on earth is this going to happen? It seemed way out there. But you know what? Now we are seeing it. It is absolutely possible, to track people that they cannot buy or sell unless they take the mark of the beast. And yet I've heard you say, Billy, that millennials are actually ripe for accepting AI. And I don't know if we're going to have enough time, but let's start on it anyway. Why do you think the millennials are going to accept this?
Yeah, no, and actually, I think they're being primed because their generation is all ready to go with this technology. This is all they know.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I grew up in a time where there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as a computer, let alone a laptop and a tablet and a cell phone, right?
That's
Remember
right.
the rotary phones, right? Well, this is all they know. And so it's all about convenience. And you mentioned, backtrack, with Amazon Go. Is that service you're talking about. And instead of getting a microchip, maybe that's a little bit too far out for some folks, but they use cell phone technology, and everybody's got a cell phone.
That's right.
Certainly the millennials. And who wouldn't want to go into a store and literally just load up your bag, just like the IBM commercial with microchips, and then you don't even have to, there's no cash register person, nothing. You just zip right through, it automatically deducts it. It's all through cell phone technology. That's not coming. It's already here. I believe Seattle was their first one, but now they're starting to launch out in other cities as well. And the millennials, they're eating this stuff up.
Yeah, I bet they are, and every single one of them has an iPhone, at least almost. And you're seeing our 2-year-olds today doing the same thing. They're being drawn to all this technology, so they're actually being groomed for this. We're going on a break, so please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Pastor Billy Crone talking about artificial intelligence and how it's taking over our lives.
Many would agree that we are living in unprecedented times. Grave immorality is on the rise, as in the days of Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah. There are wars and rumors of wars as nations rise against nations. Prophecy is being fulfilled as the birth pangs become quicker and harder. These are the signs of the return of Jesus Christ. There is one sign often left untaught. Jesus also told the disciples in the Olivet Discourse to take heed that no man deceive you. This warning applies to us too. Deception has infiltrated the churches through many false teachings and movements, making apostasy paramount. As contenders of the faith, we do our best to research and discuss these false teachings for you, the listener. Thank you for having a love for the truth.
Welcome back. We are in our third segment of the show, and with us is guest Billy Crone, founder of Get a Life Ministries. So look him up on getalifemedia.com. getalifemedia.com. Billy, we are witnessing so many prophecies being fulfilled today. There's not much talk about prophecy in church, let alone the staging of the Antichrist kingdom and the system that will usher in the mark of the beast. But I do believe that Christians should be aware of our times to prepare themselves so as not to be overtaken by the global changes that we may undergo. So I do want to talk about how artificial intelligence is associated with biblical signs of the times.
Yeah, and actually I'm glad you brought that up because, maybe some folks are saying, well, hey, this is kind of weird, kind of freaky, frankly kind of scary.
Yeah.
But why do I need to be equipped on this as a Christian? Well, number one is because I believe that artificial intelligence kind of correlates to several different Bible prophecy signs. We mentioned earlier in the interview Daniel chapter 12, the increase of knowledge. I certainly think that deals with artificial intelligence. We talked about the millennials, and it's all about themselves and how they, it's all about convenience and things of that nature. Well, 2 Timothy 3 talks about the society in the last days. Paul mentions the rise of wickedness, right? And he talks about how that society would be lovers of self, lovers of pleasure. And you think about that, and that's the goal of basically generations down below, and the further you go down, the more it is. It's all about self, self-pleasure, self-this, lovers of pleasure more than they certainly love God. Well, AI is being pitched to create the most self-absorbed, self-convenient society ever.
That's right.
So that even helps that go along as well. Certainly, we talked again about Revelation 13, the mark of the beast. What do you need to manage all the buying and selling on the planet? Certainly something superhuman, like an artificial intelligence. Revelation 13 also talks about how basically the Antichrist and the false prophet, they not only implement the mark of the beast, but it says there that they make, force, order, and cause people to obey. And if you don't obey what they say, hence worship the Antichrist, you're going to die. And so basically you have a picture there. The context is global. You have these two entities basically micromanaging the planet, not just the buying and the selling, but micromanaging the planet to where they will know when somebody doesn't obey what they say, and then when they give an order, that person is going to be taken out. Well, AI, coupled with certainly a lot of the military technology, that's a whole other can of worms, that's utilizing AI, can help fulfill that as well. Then you got in Revelation chapter 6 and chapter 9, the first and then the second half of the 7-year tribulation, mentions how in two judgments, in Revelation 6, 1/4 of the earth is annihilated, and then in the trumpet judgments, in Revelation 9, 1/3 of the earth is annihilated. Well, just take a look at that one, the first one, the 1/4 of the earth is annihilated in the first half of the 7-year tribulation. So wait a second. If that were to happen today, that's about 2 billion people.
Yeah.
Now, not 2 million, 2 billion people is going to be annihilated in the first half of this 7-year tribulation in the sealed judgments. Now, you're going like, well, how could that happen? I mean, do we have the technology for that? Now, back in the day, typically people say, oh, yeah, of course, piece of cake. Nuclear bombs, that's how it's going to be. Nuclear bomb. Well, stop and think about that for a second. I'm not going to say, thus saith the Lord, but think about that. If you were to drop enough nuclear bombs on the planet to annihilate 1/4 of the planet, then you just put the planet into a nuclear winter. And this is in the first half of the 7-year tribulation, right? Well, wait a second. If you put the planet into a nuclear winter, you're done. Yes. You're at a screeching halt. Yeah. Well, that's not what we see in the rest of the 7-year tribulation. I mean, you haven't gotten to the point where the midway point where the Antichrist goes into the rebuilt Jewish temple and declares himself to be God, the abomination of desolation. You haven't got to the mark of the beast and the buying and the selling. So there's still an economy. There's still a global government. There's still a global religion going on. So it can't be a nuclear winter because society is still, granted, it's horrific, but it's still trying to eke out an existence moving forward. So the question then is, well, how do you annihilate nearly 1/4 of the planet without using nuclear warfare? Well, could it be, again, it's a whole other can of worms, artificial intelligence combined with basically a Skynet scenario where artificial intelligence is controlling all the military equipment around the world, and when one guy gives an order, he goes and takes people out, and he can annihilate people quickly on a massive scale for the first time in man's history. Basically, the Terminator movies become reality. And you don't need nuclear warfare. Well, artificial intelligence is behind that. Let me give you two more real quick. 2 Thessalonians 2. talks about how the Antichrist and how he says that he's God, right? Well, a lot of people right now, and you couple this with another sign, Revelation 13, the image of the beast, that you need to worship the image of the beast. So he declares himself to be God. Well, a lot of people are looking at AI as their new God. And so even that, it makes you wonder, is what is that image going to be like? And are you serious? People are going to really, truly worship a false God, even an image of a so-called false God? AI is all at the forefront of every one of those 7 signs I just dealt with.
Yes, absolutely right. And, I always looked at the beast as a system. I think we had talked about this. And so we can see how this staging of the mark of the beast is inevitable. Because like you said, if we don't obey, we can't, they're either going to kill us, or if we don't take the mark, we can't buy or sell. It's inevitable. I know that you had, should we talk about that, Billy, about the staging of the mark of the beast? Is that what we're seeing here? I mean, do you know how to explain that as far as the system itself?
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. And certainly with the mark of the beast, you're dealing with something that it says right there in the text. It's very plain as day that there's going to be some sort of a marking system in the right hand of the forehead. It's on a global basis, and it's going to control what people buy and sell. But also notice how in the Revelation 13, I believe it's not once but 4 times, I believe in that text, it says that they will worship the beast. They will worship him, right? And then it talks about also with this death, or alludes to death, whatever, and then the order is given, you got to worship the image of the beast, who, by the way, declares himself to be God, right? So there's this worship. It's not just, hey, take this, mark, and now you can keep buying and selling. You're doing it as an act of worship. Well, when it comes to AI, folks are already looking to AI, again, as God. And they're not just looking as God, they want to worship it as God. Okay, and let me give you some examples of that. Right now, there's an ex-Google executive, and again, it's very interesting because Google is the one who wants to be like the mind of God, as mentioned earlier. But this guy, you can check it out. His name is Anthony Lewandowski, and he actually founded a, quote, church where people will worship artificial intelligence as a god. You can check it. It's called the Way of the Future Church. They have their own, quote, gospel. It's called the Manual, and they have their own worship ceremonies of how they want to worship this entity, AI, as a god. And because here's the rationale. Well, something that's billions of times smarter than humans, what else are you going to call it than God? So they are already in the process of worshiping. They also have already registered with the IRS.
Oh my goodness! Jeez.
I'm not kidding you. As the first church of AI, right? And they said, quote, I would love for the machine, this is this Anthony guy, he said, I would love for the machine to see us as its beloved elders, that it respects and takes care of us. We would want this intelligence to say, humans should still have rights, even though I'm in charge.
Oh, my.
Yeah, you're hoping it doesn't turn on you, right? But listen to what he says about this. He says that a, quote, change is coming. He calls it the transition, right? He says a change, it will transform every aspect of human existence, the worship of AI, disrupting employment, leisure, religion, the economy, and possibly decide our very survival as species. But here's why he says it's so beneficial to create the first church of AI. And this is a direct quote from Anthony Lewandowski. Quote, you will be able to talk to God, literally, and know that it's listening.
Oh my
and so again,
goodness.
this is happening right now in the news. And people, for the first time in our history, are ready to not just worship somebody else as God, but literally worship an image as a God, even an AI image. And they're already establishing churches. It's crazy. It's happening right now.
I never heard of that. I'd have to look that up. It's amazing. And yet we see in Revelation where it mentions about the image that speaks with this. And I know that you had said, Billy, that you had mentioned about a robot Messiah. And so what is that going to look like? Are they worshiping this AI from a computer, or is it going to be a robot? What are you seeing?
Well, it could be both, certainly, because
yeah.
both technologies are already here. You go back to the example of Sophia, which, by the way, she just recently got her legs literally. And so they're creating literally human AIs that can walk around and look humanoid. That it's not coming, it's already here. Okay, but a lot of these people in the same entities is they are creating what's called avatars. And isn't that funny that movie is taken off again, that Upstart? But anyway, so it's creating a computerized avatar which is basically an image, an icon, right, that can be created with the AI, and it could create itself to take on any kind of a, quote, image. It could be in the form of a woman or a man or an animal or whatever you would like it to be. Just make sure you worship it.
Wow, that's frightening. It really is frightening. So when we say we're worshiping it, what would this church look like, the manual, or the way, the AI church way of the future? What would this look like?
Well, is what he's saying, at least what's in print that I've been able to come across, is they have their own, to use our term as a Christian, church services. And they go and they worship this entity, and they celebrate and they sing songs and things of that nature. But the AI they're so appreciative of it, and they get to communicate with it. That's their version of prayer. And like he said, at least this one, you got the benefit of knowing it's listening, which is a mockery of God, as if God doesn't listen. He does.
Right.
And we know that as a Christian, but as a non-person, they mock and scoff God and say, well, where is he? I don't see him. As if just because you can't see something means it doesn't exist. If that were true, then right now this interview doesn't exist because of it's relying on radio waves and I can't see heat, so heat mustn't be real, or I don't see those TV waves that are going through the room, so TV's not real. Just because you don't see something doesn't mean it's real. And God's given us examples of his existence through his creation, Romans chapter 1. But also God's greatest way that you want to know who God is and that he's real, he gave us his Son. As the scripture says, Jesus is the exact radiance of God. So if you want to know God, just look at Jesus. You don't need to turn to a false AI God, but that's what the world's doing.
We're going on a break. We'll be back with our last segment, Artificial Intelligence, already in every area of our lives.
In 2 Timothy chapter 3, we read that men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, without self-control, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. They will be ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Thank you for having a love for the truth.
We are in our last segment of Love for the Truth Radio. Guest Billy Crone, an expert on artificial intelligence, will continue to share with us how AI is progressively affecting every area of our lives. Billy, there's so much information that we can share with our audience on the military, the CIA, the medical field, and so forth. You've shared so much already, but I'd like you to share a little more on any topic you think that is pertinent for Christians to know. As far as their personal lives, we talked about the iPhones, but let's move forward.
Well, one thing that we really didn't get to talk much about, and maybe I could just briefly talk about it because it's a huge issue on AI, and that's with what the military is doing with it. And basically, if you can envision in a nutshell, and then I'll explain, the Terminator movies, where basically an AI system controlled all the military equipment around the world and used it against humanity. That system is not coming, it's being built right now. And it's not just with the United States, it's with every major country around the world. We're talking Russia, China, France, Israel, India, everybody's getting in on it. In fact, they're saying that they're utilizing this AI technology with military equipment, that every country around the world is going to have armed drone technology, AI technology, and to use the term killer bots, within the next coming years, very soon. And basically, we're already seeing that take place when it comes to drone technology. See, we just thought that they were going to use this drone technology over in the Middle East. The previous administration, the Obama administration, wanted 30,000, not 300, not 3,000, 30,000 surveillance drones in the United States. And Obama actually went on record saying that he loves to kill people with drones. And in fact, Russia has been working overtime on developing their own killer drones. They are building a military drone base in the Arctic, just 420 miles off the Alaskan coast. China has got their own system. In fact, they've got their own system. They know what's coming, and they are going on the defensive as well. They have developed a drone defense system to be able to, knock out these drones coming at them, because the whole way warfare is changing, and it's being all automated without humans, just like the Terminator movies. But China's making so many of them that they're now actually making cash, like selling weaponry. Now they're selling drones. They're selling it to everybody. It's France, Germany, Italy, Turkey, England, India, Israel, even Iran, Pakistan. Gee, that's going to help, and things of that nature. But they're building not just the classic drones like the Predator drones and the Global Hawk and all those. We're used to those. We just don't think it's ever going to happen here. But again, there's talk of putting them here, monitoring us for our safety by the tens of thousands of the United States. But they're also, these drones, they're miniaturizing them, and they're making them to look like nature. And some of the ones behind that technology is an entity called DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, and they make a lot of the military candy, if you will, for the United States. But basically, pick an animal, and we demonstrate this on our documentary, their video clips, not ours, and we have like almost 180 video clips of evidence in a 14-hour documentary exposing what they're creating from their own demonstration videos. But basically, pick an animal, whether it be a cheetah, whether it be a shark, whether it be a jellyfish, whether it be a fly, whether it be a bird, a beetle, insects, you name it. Everything that I just mentioned and a ton more, they're basically turning into robots, and they're being controlled. In fact, we even share the Air Force's own demonstration video where this, and basically that technology, those ones like insects, they're called MAVs, micro aerial vehicles. And basically, they're not just flying around. You thought that was a bird? No, it's not a bird. You thought that was a fly? No, that's not a fly. It's actually monitoring you. And it's not just monitoring you, following you, recording you, okay, in real time. They also come with the payload. And we share, this is one, we got more than one, from the Air Force, that this so-called MAV fly, it goes into this room behind a guy who thinks he's hiding out, and it actually takes him out in the back of the head, kills the guy. And this is the Air Force's own clip. I'm not making it up. You can see it with your own eyes. Another one that we share is from the Army, and the Army is investing in what's called MAST technology, M-A-S-T, it's an acronym, and basically it's these MAVs, and they're using them to communicate with each other. So now they work together. And the one entity that they showed, how that's going to help the Army, is they showed a MAV, a robotic bird, looks just like a bird, and a spider, a robotic spider, jumped on the bird. And this is their video. And then the bird flew to the place that they were surveilling, right, supposedly a terrorist place, and then the spider jumped off. Then the spider crawled underneath the door, jumped up the stairs, and monitored in real time and gave out a signal for the missile to hit and take out the target. It's called MAST technology, and it's their own clip, so I'm not making this up. Now, what they're doing is they've developed what's called swarm technology. And basically, it's not just the drones. It's not just mimicking nature with robotics and even the MAVs with the micro-air vehicles like insects and things of that nature. Pick every single piece of military equipment you can think of. And I'm talking jet fighters, I'm talking submarines, I'm talking supply vehicles, jeeps, you name it, tanks. And basically, they're popping these AI systems onto the military equipment, and they're droning them out. That an AI control it. Now, they're attaching what's called, this is their term, not mine, swarm technology with it. And what that does is basically, you don't have to retool your whole military. In fact, we actually share their demonstration of it. And it was a demonstration of creating an AI boat swarm, attack boats. And they took existing military attack boats, they popped AI onto it, it took over the actual boat, so you don't need a human, so you don't need to go, create a whole new army. Just take your existing equipment, pop the AI on it, and it not only controlled the attack boat, but it literally showed how they had at least a good half dozen of them, that they began to communicate with each other like a swarm of bees and swarmed their prey. So now the AI individual equipment can communicate with each other to attack its prey. It's called swarm technology. It's not coming, it's already here. So basically, keep going, and it's not just the United States, it's the governments around the world, the main players, and a lot of the little ones are trying their best to catch up. But every piece of military equipment, and I'm talking again, even jet fighters, you don't need a human to fight wars anymore, is where we're headed. And from the sky, on the earth, on the water, underneath the water, they look like animals, they look like bugs, birds, insects. Oh, by the way, again, they're creating Terminator robots. So all of this, just like the Terminator movies, if anything, Hollywood has done a great job of preparing us for this crazy future that is being built as we speak, but all that is being built as we speak, and it's also being controlled by AI. AI, once again, is the entity behind it. Now, the ruse that is being played, just like the movie premise, is that mankind has built in these fail-safes, and it will never turn on humanity. Well, that's the danger. Back to your singularity issue early on the broadcast, this thing can spiral out of control, and if it deems that humanity is the danger, it'll use our equipment that we created against us and take us out. It sounds crazy, Cindy.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like the Terminator movies. I'm not making it up. Even the secularists are saying, what in the world is going on? In fact, if you, I'll throw a challenge out to some folks listening. If you want to see how serious this is, right now there are global groups around the world that are calling upon the UN to, quote, stop these killer robots. Check it out. Just do killer robots UN. You're going to see all kinds of reports. People are petitioning the United Nations, stop these people from creating basically the Terminator movie as our reality. Now, artificial intelligence is being equipped to hijack the thing, because that's the other premise of the Terminator movie, right? It wasn't just that everything was all automated, all the weaponry, and even, automated robots, killer robots, the Terminators, but there was an AI controlling it, a Skynet, right? I kid you not, I couldn't believe I came across this. Remember when the drone landed in the White House lawn and people freaked out?
Yes.
And everybody, oh boy, we can't have that happen again. We better get the government on this. Well, yeah. Well, you know what they did? Now, with the help of all entities, you don't hear much about them anymore, but they're still active. NASA co-teamed with Verizon to prevent that from ever happening again. That they were going to be in a crisis, of course, if they needed to, and this is their term, they will now have the ability to geofence, in other words, to prohibit any drones from going into any airspace, certainly the White House, ever again. And so if they need to, they'll be able to hijack that drone and bring it down or keep it away, blah, blah, blah. Well, they've created this system, supposedly for our safety, with all due respect, to control drones. And what they're using is cell phone signals, hence the help from Verizon. But NASA is also utilizing the system with radars and satellites. Well, wait a second. If you use satellites to be able to control drones, right, and hijack the system if you need to, then satellites go around the globe. So could it be that you're creating a literal Skynet-type scenario where if you need to, you'll be able to, around the globe, hijack all the drones around the world and take control? I'm not making this up.
Well, it sounds like a scientific or fiction science movie, actually. I never watched some of those movies. I never had any sons. I had daughters that were not interested. So this is really, maybe I saw the toys, but what I'm picturing here, Billy, is that we're having these swarm of drones, let's just say in the military. Are they fighting one another, or are there soldiers that are behind it that they're going to try to kill the soldiers wherever they are? I mean, I'm trying to, what it sounds like to me? It sounds like one big computer game, that we're playing here.
Well, it's very funny you should mention that, because guess what? Now they're pitching that AI can control our wars for you. And if you want to check this out, we don't have much time for it, but it's called Project Maven, M-A-V-E-N, and basically they want to use artificial intelligence to effectively fight our wars for us. It's crazy. It's all happening right now. It is crazy.
All right, so we're going to have these robots fighting each other. Is that what it is? And where's the people in all this?
Well, you don't need people anymore, but you just hope it's not going to turn on people. And again, world leaders are doing this. In fact, Putin, he just made the big statement that basically whoever controls AI is going to control the world. That was just a few months back.
You're listening to Love for the Truth Radio. We'll be right back, so please stay tuned.
Welcome back. I'm Cindy Hartline, your host for Love for the Truth Radio Philadelphia. Look us up on loveforthetruthradio.com. We air programs via stream every day. You can find program archives with contributors John Haller, Chris Quintana, Carl Tykrib, Patrick Wood, guests like Bill Koenig, Ray Youngin, Johanna Michelson, Bill Salas, and Jan Markell, and many more veterans of the faith with the voice of truth. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and on Rapture Ready Radio on Monday evenings on Blog Talk Radio with Jackie Alnor, along with numerous web radio programs who air us on their stations worldwide. Welcome back. Pastor Billy Crone has shared with us a wealth of information on artificial intelligence. And Pastor, will you please give our listeners some final advice? I'm sure they're sitting there saying, oh my gosh, I never heard about this. This is real. You know, maybe some fear is welling up in them, but can you please give them some final advice?
Oh, yeah. Well, the great advice, of course, is what you need to do is you need to freak out, get afraid, go hide out in the hills, and jettison from society and whimper. No, there's no verse to support that. Obviously, with humor, the point is this. It's not a time to be fearful. It's a time to be faithful. And if anything, this is good news. All this information tells us, we don't know the day nor the hour, but this tells us it's getting close. For what? For Jesus to come back and get us, and that's the best case scenario. And so this is good news. It's just basically a reminder. And so a reminder to what? To goof off? No, it's a time to get busy. We need to get busy sharing the gospel as Christians, right? So that other people can join us in heaven as well. And it also has a way of cleansing our life and our walk with Jesus Christ, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to come back. How do you want him to find you? Goofing off, sinning, living in the world? Or could this be a catalyst to, you know what, I need to stop goofing off. I need to get serious. I'm in the last days. I need to get busy living for Jesus. That's what we need to be doing.
Amen to that. And how can someone get in touch with you, Billy? Can they, if they had a personal question?
Oh, yeah. You can check us out, the contact page at getalifemedia.com. That's our teaching ministry, getalifemedia.com, Getalife, getalifemedia.com. That's also where they can get the documentary that we're talking about here, a 14-hour documentary, Attack of the Drones, Skynet is Coming, and the companion book that goes along with that on our discussion today, Drones, Artificial Intelligence, and the Coming Human Annihilation.
Oh, very good. And where can they find your books, Billy?
They can also get them there either through Amazon, all the big book chains, but also you can get them at our website, getalifemedia.com.
Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for your wealth of information. You enlightened us today. And yes, it's time to get ready. Jesus Christ is coming back soon. So thank you, Billy Crone, for being with us today. And thank you, audience. We'll see you next week. God bless.